these have to environmental monitoring, disaster planning, navigation system development, natural resource management, or in the agricultural sector. These decisions cannot be made without the right geospatial data and without the right geospatial analysis. And in order to capture those data, obviously you have to use remote sensing, aerial photography, satellite images, geocoding, different kind of surveys, and so on and so forth. And this space is evolving a lot because of introduction of AI, ML, blockchain, IoT, robotics, and different kind of technologies. Computer vision is also playing a huge role in the transformation of this industry. And that's the reason that that's the reason why we wanted to have a conversation on innovations and policies disrupting geospatial analysis space. Today, we have a very diverse panel with us who is going to share their insights on how this industry is evolving, what kind of challenges, frustrations industry leaders are facing, and how they foresee this industry evolving in the next 5 to 10 years. This is Pankaj Gupta from EthAum Venture Partners. We are a deep tech revenue accelerator and fund based out of Singapore with approximately 100 portfolio startups from different parts of the world, sectors, and stages. We are hosting this panel today with GeoAlert, which is one of our portfolio startups that we onboarded in July 2023. I have Georgie and Andre with me, who are going to moderate this panel and going to ask some really interesting questions to our esteemed panelists. Now, talking about the panelists, we have this panel from different geographies and from diverse experience, starting with Dr. Anirudh. May I request Dr. Anirudh to do a brief introduction, please?
Yeah, thank you, Pankaj, and good afternoon, good morning, wherever the geography it is. My name is Dr. Anirudh Roy. I am representing here a company called Genesis International from India. We are an advanced geospatial company, primarily into large-scale survey and mapping. We do a lot of work which is pertaining to LiDAR survey. Our primary work is revolving around creating 3D digital twin for the urban environment, and also we do a lot of work on the telco service providers. This is a brief introduction, and we do have our large team for the production and for also the application development.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Dr. Anirudh, and I'm sure that we are going to learn a lot from your insights today. So really appreciate your presence. Nina, please go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, good day, everybody. My name is Moiseva Nina, and I'm working as an Earth observation scientist at a company which is called the Map Impact Company. That is a company from the United Kingdom. And I joined them quite recently, and Map Impact Company itself, it was founded in 2023. We provide environmental reporting tools for clear and concise decision making, and we try to empower individuals for understanding of the nature and biodiversity, and providing our clients with reliable and consistent information to support the need of action in the field of the environment.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Nina. Really appreciate your presence today. May I request Shaleen to go ahead?
Hi, good afternoon and good evening, good morning, wherever it is. I'm an architect, and I've been a practicing architect, and for the past 15, 17 years, I'm into education. At the moment, I'm Dean School of Architecture in Greater Delhi, and I'm an urban enthusiast, I'm an urban designer, and this is what I've been teaching for the past 15 years. So urbanism and the tools to understanding urbanism has been a keen interest to me. I've been exploring various fields, and this being new in the arena, I've been researching on it, and I am probably from the question asking side. So Georgie thankfully included me in this, and probably I would have more questions to ask regarding the services that you are providing. So you can take me from the the devil's advocate side actually, rather than actually. So looking forward to hearing some interesting things and knowing how all of you can help me understand my urban scenario better and how I can educate my own students and various urban enthusiasts in this direction. So that's my introduction. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Shaleen. I'm sure that your student will love you attending this session with GeoAlert today, because you're going to give them a fantastic tool later on.
I hope so.
Hey, thanks a lot, Shaleen. Murugan, please go ahead.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Yeah, this is Murugan Chidambaram. I'm heading engineering team for one of the startup from Chennai, India, Tamil Nadu. This domain, actually what we selected is aquaculture. For this is kind of niche and unique area which we are working on. We are taking satellite and remote sensing technology, and how can we leverage that technology to the end farmers or buyers or exporters who are partnering with us. So this is what we are doing. This tool actually helping us for taking macro decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Murugan. Okay, I know that GeoG got some really fantastic question for our jury, and we should definitely get into the panel questions and get some really interesting insights from our jury members. So GeoG, are you ready to do a brief intro and take it from there?
Yeah, I'll take it from here. Thanks, Pankaj, for the introduction, and I appreciate having so wonderful panelists. I appreciate people coming to call outside of the Earth observation and geospatial bubble, like Mr. Sharma, and this will be an interesting discussion for us, for all of us, I believe. Nice to meet you all, dear panelists, dear listeners. So we will get started with some introductory question, just to warm up our discussion, yes, and to briefly introduce and to get briefly deeper into detail about what actually we are doing, everyone in his own business, and how do you see the overall market. So the question is, what geospatial analysis for you, and how mapping and analytics have changed last years? Let me start with Nina. Will you go first, ladies first? Not only because, but we've known, actually, just briefly introduction. We've been known each other for years. We used to work in one company. It was actually the leading Russian remote sensing technology company. Those days it was this way. And so I would appreciate to hear from Nina what actually she is doing now and how she is seeing these things.
Yeah, thank you so much. So answering the first question, what is really geospatial analysis for me? I can answer that geospatial analysis for me is a way to communicate the problems, actually. So it is a way to get some insights from a data, geospatial data, and to build data-driven solutions to address the problems which are emerging right now in the world. And also the geospatial analysis for me, it is also a beautiful combination of the things which I truly enjoy in my life. So it is earth and environmental studies, that is mathematics and statistics, and that is visualization. So for me, geospatial analysis, it is a tech for good in its core. So right now, people a lot speaking about the tech for good, and I think that the geospatial analysis, yes, it is definitely a tech for good. Answering the second question, how the technology and what the company is working in the mapping and in geospatial analysis doing in the last years, I could answer the following. So which trends I actually see in terms of the changes. So first trend which I need to mention is shifting the focus from the technologies themselves to the problem solving. So to the problem solving and to the domain research. So right now, many companies, they don't just say people that we are using geospatial technologies, we are using Earth observation data, and so on. We try to focus right now on what we can bring actually at final to the users and how we can benefit. So we are focusing on the problem solving. Another one trend which we see in technology is that all the companies right now, they trying to develop and create large and scalable decisions. So not only just some reports or something like that, but to make a transparent, large, scalable products. So reproducible on its core, so reproducible solutions, and something which could be reused, for example, for the different territories, for the different customers, and so on. Also, on the other hand, we still try to provide the customer with a solution which is designed and targeted for him. So we pay the huge attention to customer needs and to user stories, which could happen for one person or another, or for one company or another. And what I like as a scientist, that right now industry shifted, that we really pay attention on a scientific driven product. So not just some map, not just some geospatial product, but how it is scientifically driven and which scientific solutions should be developed to implement this project. And in terms of technologies, also the trend which I see, and I see it for a long time, that all geospatial companies and mapping companies right now, they try use less desktop software, because modern geospatial companies, they usually work with the code only, so they can work during like all their lifetime without using the desktop software, just with using cloud storage, cloud computation, using the code, so everything is in code, and that affects not only the current industry, but also the future portrait of the geospatial scientist. Yeah, and everything shifts to the open data and of the open software. Yeah, so that is my vision of how everything is changing previous years.
Great, so excellent. Geospatial is on the side of goodness, so to say. Yeah.
And I think that is a good approach, actually, because we cannot focus on the technologies, and also, you know, when we are not so focused that we are just geospatial scientists, that we are Earth observation scientists and so on, it also helps us to integrate different technologies and not focus on our first domain, just understand how to build a good solution for the customer.
Okay, good. Thanks, Nina. And let's call someone, as I said it, outside of geospatial bubble. Shalin, Mr. Sharma, would you continue, please, sharing your thoughts about this? Geospatial analysis, how have things changed last 2-3 years?
Well, definitely the data collection as far as the urban scenario is concerned, that has become much more accessible. The details of it, bits and pieces are available, but as an urban designer, I would still feel that there is a large gap when it comes to the data that we receive on a particular urban site, whether it be at a city scale or whether that be at a community scale. Now that is something which sort of pushes the entire thing way behind, because as an urban designer, I need information at various levels. So I'm sure the field is growing faster, and I have been at my end preparing quite an exhaustive matrix on this. So I would not be the right person to point out as to which particular AI or whichever plugin is providing that. But I still feel if I'm designing an urban area, then if I'm going from A to C, then there is the B part, which is completely missing. So most of the time, I'm going back onto the older tools, which were mostly related to going back on the site and getting that information. So maybe in another 2 years' time, 3 years' time, if that gap is bridged up, then I think as an urban designer, in terms of data information, I would be comfortably saying that I'm very happy with it. But I can understand that there is load of improvement. So maybe this is not the right platform, but I would like to share the matrix that I have prepared at various scales of not only areas, but also in terms of social, in terms of economic, in terms of environmental information that I have tried to seek from one single provider, but it has been missing. So maybe if that can be bridged, I think as an urban designer, I would be very happy to log on to one and get all the information and lead to more accurate and much more precise urban solutions that any urban designer or an urban planner or an architect would be looking for. So from my side, I think that should be all.
Oh, okay, thank you. I think it's a very large field actually, and here we have experts who can contribute into the discussion about the urban design, urban planning, and also discuss different kinds of technologies, not only the one platform, not only one technology, but look at these things broader and from different perspectives, you know. Dr. Aniruddha, will you take it from here to share your thoughts?
Yes. Thank you, Georgie. So let me start by telling, and I'll take a cue from my previous speakers, Nina and Shalin. See, the analysis comes and something is before that and something is after that. Primarily, once we collect the data, once this data is collected, and as you know, as far as geospatial is concerned, data actually comes from disparate sources. So in a common geographic framework, you have got multiple layers. First and foremost, the power of GIS and geospatial is that to find out the hidden geographic relationship that exists between the different layers. It can be 2 layers, it can be more than 2 layers. So the power of analysis for us is very clear. There is a problem statement, as Nina has explained. For that problem statement, we need solution. So what are the tools and technologies that we use along with the workflow, which will help us to find the solution for a problem? And for that, there are different techniques which are used. So analysis for me is actually a conformance to the requirement where the user gets the solution for their problem. This is one part. Second aspect, how do we do that? So there were times that we used to use the command prompts in the desktop environment. Then there are times then we will be using easy to interface graphical user design has been very, very easy, and then we'll be using that very often to make the things happen. But of late, when the process is routinely happening, then there are spatial modelers which has come up now. So once that modeler, the input data and the output expectation is set, the rest of the spatial analysis, whatever the algorithms, those are actually put as a part of the spatial modeler, and you click the input button and you get the output for a specific domain. So for us, very clearly, analysis actually means solving the problems with certain set of tools and technologies. Now, having said that, 2 things. One is actually you visualize the data, you keep on querying the data, then you analyze the data, and eventually to the customers or the end users, we render the data in the form of charts and reports, which they can comprehend well. Now, if I tell you how it has changed in last 2 to 3 years, when the COVID came, actually, we do have close to 2,000 people in our company, and it was all from, we were all locked in our respective homes. And then we were thinking that how do we actually work? And it was a very unprecedented affair that nobody knows when it is going to get over. Fortunately, in India, the network bandwidth was actually very good, and most of us, our colleagues, were having that access to the network bandwidth. And we felt that this analysis of the data or the processing of the data, whatever we do, it is heavy desktop intensive and it requires a computational resource. We came across one international client who told that we will train you as long as you do have a good bandwidth to operate. Believe me, in 12 days' time, we signed the contract. We got trained in next 15 days. And then close to 100 people have been working in a cloud environment, doing the analysis of the LiDAR data, that how much of vegetation is actually cropping up in the electrical pipelines, in the electrical lines. These are the learnings which have actually changed the mindset and our thought process, the way we work. So today we are talking in Zoom. This technology existed before also. But now it is so convenient that we reduced our travel time and we are talking it very frequently. For us, analysis means that how fast, how easily you can find the problems of the solutions effectively using tools and technologies. So that's my opening remarks.
Solving the end user problems. Thank you, Dr. Aniruddha. And I'll go next. So here we have Dr. Usman. He joined us, and I think you are the person who also can look at these things from another perspective. So would you share about geospatial market and how has it changed?
Please unmute yourself, Dr. Usman.
Sorry. So my background is basically a public sector. So I have been a part of several smart cities initiatives in Dubai and in the MENA region. And we implemented several GIS applications across different departments, starting from like police, municipalities, and civil defense, and everyone use it according to their needs. So as all my other colleagues mentioned, that the data is the drive basically. So analytics and combining basically on the data with different AI apps basically, especially in Dubai because they're quite advanced in using geospatial data. I mean, for various applications, and there is a strategy here to implement basically GIS with AI implementation. And have there is like a policies from policies perspective. Basically, there are well-written GDPR guidelines available for all the departments. I remember around like 15 years ago when we started implementing the GIS in different applications, there was a lot of noise about ownership of the data. So either it belongs to the police or municipality or which department is basically going to take care of it. But now, I mean, with the advancements of the different AI tools, and especially the cloud-based GIS applications, I mean, the government is also facilitating the private sector to basically get an advantage for the GIS applications which they have developed. And especially the integration between different entities, for example, like the telecom companies or the electricity companies, they have their own GIS system for their utility networks, and they have a well-defined integration between different entities like municipalities, police, civil defense, and especially the data basically is helping all these organizations to have basically a state-of-the-art applications for the end users to have a maximum usability for the GIS system itself. So I believe that the new trends, especially when you talk about the linked open data and you talk about the AI tools, it really helped basically the public sector for providing state-of-the-art services for the business users to have basically the accessibility of the GIS applications.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And so we have also Murugan. Can you continue and finalize this discussion and we go to the next question?
Okay. If we want to understand what we are doing technically in AquaConnect or in my company, we would like to understand that sector a little bit. Agriculture, yes, in India, it is widely started adopting technologies, but aquaculture, it is very new to the country itself. And we are trying to implement this technology from last 2.5 years. We started with collecting data by going each and every farmer, collecting the data manually through WhatsApp or some other medium. Then we started, how can we do this in a macro level, or how can I scale this up without touching the ground? So we took a decision, how can I use spatial technologies and do analytical based on that technology in a very scalable manner. So we started gathering satellite informations and feeding into our machine learning algorithms, which we written for our sector. It is now giving better result. So from that, now we are able to predict, hey, what is going on in the ground in that particular district or village or with that farmer, you can think of. So to that level, we are able to identify now and predict to certain level. Now, this is what is happening with our geospatial analytical area.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing your experience and your views. But the time is limited, so I think we need to speed up a little bit with the questions. We have 4 more questions. So let's maybe choose the most interesting one. Okay, so the one which I would choose, and I also have to say that I have my dear colleague Andrei here, and we would like to discuss with you about some disrupting geospatial regulations that might come in, because this question is linked, in my opinion, to the next one, which concerns us, I mean, the active market players, the startup companies, either startup companies or large enterprises like the one which is presented by Dr. Aniruddha, and also big players. Why this market is not growing so fast? And actually, this is the significant difference. You can spot it in the report provided by Euroconsult. This is a marketing agency, and they make a lot of reports about geospatial market and Earth observation is specifically market. And the difference is related to the downstream of Earth observation applications in the whole space technologies. The downstream means then you get this information and you use it somehow, yeah? So the Earth observation applications are related to only 2% of the whole market of space technologies when it comes to downstream applications, to downstream. And when we look at the upstream, by this we mean the investments into the launch of new satellites, the investments into the space technology scientific approach to launch more satellites and so on, to produce more data actually. There is 26% the market share. So you see this difference, 2% and 26%. Does it mean the low adoption? How we can extend this share, this market share, when it comes to the downstream of observation applications? Actually, what we are doing now. And when this market is going to gain this momentum? I would like to address this question, and okay, let's start with Andrei. Maybe you will share some of your thoughts, and then you will help me to co-moderate this. You will help me to moderate this discussion. Okay, Andrei, what do you think about this?
I guess that we need at first check your consult methodology. How can we estimate market 2% or 25 or 90%? I don't know, really, I don't know. I did a lot of research work related with GIS and EO market. And I see that in some cases we need to rewrite our methodology. And I believe that real percent of downstream market of EOR and GS is much, much higher. Is much higher because we need to estimate what people do with open data, with Sentinel and with Landsat. I know some investigations coming from GIM International and Geospatial World Resources, and they report us that GIS and EO market is really, really huge. And just now this market is growing, and we need to separate this market on different sphere, on different levels. The first level, ground levels, when we are talking about topographic work. Next level about analytics. Next level, it's marketing, geo-marketing. It's all about business intelligence. My understanding of this market, it differs than your consult understanding. And I believe that our market is much, much, much more in person, not only two. Yeah.
Okay, I see your point. We will publish our own report about this market, which will be contradictory to what was published. But my concern that it might be related to the low adoption of these technologies by large corporations, by mass market as well, because we remember I started actually doing this business or researching in this field when the market was rapidly growing with personal navigation devices. You know, it was like boom. It was growing very rapidly, and then it was almost killed by big companies like Google, I don't know, other big players who just provide these mass services for free. And now they are also publishing a lot of open data for goodness, as it mentioned by Nina, but it's killing small companies, it's killing businesses who produce this data on demand, and customers are used to taking it for granted. You know, they are very reluctant to pay for data generation. They are very reluctant to invest into the new technologies, innovation technologies, we can say, because it requires investments. And when it comes to Google, they just don't care about, you know, investments. They need it just for publicity, for testing their capacities, and so on and so forth. But the question is, if it's gonna take if it's gonna gain another momentum, maybe there are some other trends, positive trends in the market that we can highlight here. Dr. Aniruddha, would you like to continue? Would you like to elaborate a little bit on this? Oh, you are muted.
You are on mute.
So thanks, Georgie. If you can just give me a pointed question, because you touched upon many things. So if you can just rephrase and ask me very pointed, then I can be to the point.
Yeah, actually, so we were talking about why the market share of Earth observation applications is very small compared to the investments that are coming into the launch of new satellites. Now we are facing the growing number of affordable sensors. And by this, I mean that the data proposal is far exceeding the data demand. Otherwise, the data demand is underdeveloped. And what kind of efforts we can contribute into this direction to develop it further, to actually to help this market to grow?
Okay. Okay. So if my understanding is correct, let me just first start this EO upstream and downstream. So when we start to collect the data, that is what we call upstream. And when we disseminate and bring the solutions, that is what we are calling a downstream. So your observation is that when we have got so much of data available, and then why it is not ingested properly and why that market is not growing. In my observation, one of the aspects which is very clearly evident, is that, as I mentioned in the previous question also, there is a solution which is required. Lot of data actually has got no meaning unless one creates a solution out of it. So the objective is that we do have a lot of raw data. How much of that data is actually usable? And that is where the artificial intelligence and machine learning comes into being. We do have unstructured data. We have got structured data. You may have a satellite data and you have got a lot of building footprints which are there, but it is not mapped properly. Can I use an artificial intelligence and machine learning so that rather than doing the work manually, which we have all been doing, 200, 300, 400 people have been engaged in creating the outline of the building polygons and delivering it to the customers. Accuracy of the data is very important. That's why this manual effort is there. But believe me, the smart companies have started acquiring the services and leveraging these AI/ML practices. Objective is that nobody is 100%. Through the AI/ML practices, if somebody attends 95%, doing this balance 5% checks with quality checks as well as manual saves a lot of time. Once that data is ready, then you can jumpstart the project to bring in the solutions. So in my opinion, majority of the data producing companies, they are still employed with a manual method. There has to be an intelligent mix of how much you can automate, and whatever is not perfected, that should be supported with the manual intervention to create the fine data which can participate in the analysis. So in my opinion, very clearly, two aspects. One aspect is the perfection of data, because input data garbage is output data garbage. So if your input is wrong, output is going to be wrong. So though plenty of data is available and people are selling the data, to make use of a usable data through a known vendor, through a known algorithm, through the known skill set, if you can produce high quality data and that data participate into an analysis, that will give productivity. When you come to the large players, when they wink the eyes, the small players are gone. I do have a response to that. And I will cite one very beautiful example, citing India as a case study. Recently, 2021, 15th February, and I think December 22, new policy has been created by Government of India. And 23, we have got India space policy. It is a level playing field, what the domestic companies can do and what the foreign companies can do. In order to make the level free ground very clearly, any data which is less than 1 meter GSD can be surveyed only by the Indian companies. Indian company can share the data with the foreign entities through the application programming interfaces. So if any international company is going to come and adopt and do a fine-grained mapping, they have to be dependent on the surveying companies, which is from the India. So this is what the best of the technologies can be used to survey the data from the local people. At the same time, when we leverage, there is no objection in sharing the data, but through certain practices. So objective is, again, Google is for the mass users. And similar, there are other things which are data is the key, solution is the key. In my objective, it is very clear. There are n number of organizations, both in the government as well as in the enterprises. They do not want to bring and connect their departmental data set and expose that in the public forum. They will have their own entities. It can be cloud infrastructure, but restricted, and usage will be privileged to their departmental access only. There is an immense scope of delivering the results and the solutions within these premises of the enterprise sector. And that's why, while Google or similar other players who are very large and actually going for the citizen-centric solution for the public good. There is also much larger market which can be addressed if the solution is good, if the niche is there, one can target, and still there is a huge captive audience which is still waiting to get those solutions. These are my initial comments.
Thank you, great. Some light of hope sounding in your words. Okay, let's go with Nina next. Nina, would you think this market is going to be developed further?
Yeah, that will be a pleasure for me. So I think what we could do in the future to shift this gap between the upstream and downstream Earth observation is to pay also some attention to the midstream companies and what midstream services and platforms could actually provide to us. So the companies who are acting right now mostly in the downstream domain, they can, for example, pay more attention to the midstream and also call for the support from the marketplaces and the different types of the solutions for the data handling. So for example, like Amazon Web Services, for example, like Google Cloud and so on, because that will help for the downstream market to provide scalable solutions for their customers. One of the reasons I think why we have got such a disproportion is that upstream Earth observation is quite a monopoly in many countries, and upstream Earth observation services, they also, for example, they produce demand on their data by themselves. So for example, if we see the hugest market players, we can see that they are actually creating the demand on their own data by themselves. So what is actually happening that the data which are produced by the upstream companies, it is consumed also by the downstream companies, but downstream companies themselves, they need to find the customer for all the data and AI-based products, data-based products, and so on, which they are producing. And that is quite difficult because it is more difficult for them to find the customer rather than for the upstream error. So what they actually also can do is to pay some attention to find which products they can produce beyond the traditional applications. And what could help them in terms of the governmental policy and in terms of the policy, it may be sometimes there is a situation that the customers could not definitely rely and trust the data which the downstream companies produce, because sometimes the decisions and solutions which they bring to the market, they are a little bit black boxed from the customers. So what could help is making what you are doing more transferable, more reproducible, and so on, so the customer actually know how accurate is everything which is producing. So to put it out from the black box in terms of how you process the data and how the AI-driven products are made. And that is like kind of collaboration between the policy, between the market player and understanding the customer needs. And also another thing is to actually explain and to understand, explain to the market and to understand yourself how actually you can trust the data which is producing and who is responsible. So I think that for the customer, one of the points which is also necessary to understand to become your customer is who will be responsible in terms if the data is wrong, who will be responsible in if algorithm works wrong, and so on. So who will take the responsibility for not appropriate consulting or for not appropriate data product, and so on. So, and maybe these types of regulations, the quality of the data, the transparency of the algorithms, the ownership of the algorithms, the ownership of the data, and the question, yeah, about so we haven't got some kind of regulations. Could we actually use these products to make any decisions based on them? So that is kind of the consultancy, not more So that's a questionable. So they're actually not like totally approved to be implemented for what we are doing and for what we try to bring to the customer. So yeah.
Thanks. To be more specific, let's ask, I don't know, maybe Murugan, what kind of issues, what kind of barriers in terms of the policy, I don't know, market value propositions, what kind of barriers you are facing, you are overcoming in your business?
Yeah, I can put it in a funny way. Like first we thought it's very difficult to pull data from satellite and identify what is happening in the ground and take it to market. That's what we thought. It is very difficult. But after taking the data, running our machine learning algorithm, image processing, everything done, now we are into better shape to show to our internal customer, where we are unable to convince because the awareness from the business user is very less compared to the way, because somebody is asking, hey, how can you identify water quality from the satellite? Simple question. So that kind of awareness. So taking this into balance and convincing both the levels and further pushing to market is kind of challenge for us. So adoption, I can understand. Taking data, building algorithm is comparatively much better for me, and taking that into business case, convincing business and actually writing that business logic into that data is very, very difficult. That's why I feel that adoption rate is comparatively less.
Okay, thank you. Let's ask Usman, Dr. Usman, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, can you clarify a bit on your view about the things that are going, why there's so disproportion between investments into upstream, into the launch of new satellites and producing more and more data, and what are the limitations with the downstream applications?
Well, actually, I mean, from a public sector perspective, I mean, there is a major drive to basically sell data or provide basically data to the researchers, to the industry, to the universities. And there is a major drive, especially in United Arab Emirates. I mean, they also have started their journey towards basically the towards like the space. And there is a lot of investment going on in enabling the SMEs or the industry basically to get benefits out of the data which have been collected. So as my colleague mentioned, I mean, there is a big challenge of basically getting a satellite data and converting into something, which is useful for the industry. But fortunately, like, I mean, especially the public sector here in the United Arab Emirates, I mean, they have done a tremendous jobs in all the states at all the level. Either you talk about the police, or you talk about civil defense, you talk about any department. They have state-of-the-art GIS centers, and they're starting developing the policies basically for like a utilization of the data basically for the private sector, and this is happening quite fast. And also, we have like state-of-the-art departments, which is related to basically for the data collection, which is, and they spend a lot of money in basically getting the data. So now the GIS applications and those, the data which is available in other departments, they talk to each other. And now they're coming up with basically a commercial model to have this data availability basically for the end users to get benefit out of it. So I think, yes, I mean, there is a lot of investments going on, especially in UAE, for basically having a different type of application for the utilization of data to facilitate the end users.
Oh, good, great to know this. Are there no governmental restrictions on the resolution of data in UAE?
It used to be, but I mean, for example, if you look into Dubai, I mean, they are the first one who have implemented their blockchain strategy, going paperless. They are working on several other innovative models like flying cars and point-to-point Hyperloop solutions. So they are quite open, and now the GIS have basically also, I mean, an integration with an AI apps available in different departments. And there is a lot of R&D going on in terms of IoT implementation with the GIS. So IoT is basically facilitating, again, the private and public sector to get the data from different resources, which can be utilized to have basically state-of-the-art applications for many private sector organizations.
Good, great, thank you very much. And let's get to maybe the last question in our preliminary discussion. And I would address this question as: imagine ChatGPT. So this is a large language model, you're aware of. You might try this model, but what kind of answers would you ask this? What kind of questions would you ask this model if it would come to Earth observation data? Yeah, let's imagine what could it be and what kind of questions concern you most. What would you ask this kind of Earth observation ChatGPT? Let's start with Shalim.
Thanks. Georgie, I would have loved to answer the earlier question, but you didn't invite me.
Sorry, I missed you. Sorry, but you can use this opportunity.
Maybe because I'm the user, I would have been able to answer that much better than the the designers.
Sure.
So you see, I am quite thrilled to hear all the panelists. And earlier, which was just a hunch, I think listening to them, things have become much clearer. So as an end user and as somebody who's trying to understand this, and I think the problem between upstream and downstream is that all of us as users have started taking data as the solution, which it is not. Data is something from which the solution needs to be extracted. So the rough matrix that I've drawn, so thanks to Dr. Anirudh, who had mentioned data and analysis. Okay, so that predominantly still is an upstream. But the 2 points which sort of leads us to the solution are basically synthesis and design for change. Now, I will use an example for it, which would suit everybody. I'm not use a architectural or an urban design. So let's say there is there's an economic data that we are taking out. So the economic data may be in terms of markets, costs, finance. Now, the upstream will provide me with a good analysis of demand and supply, on which I will think that demand and supply is my solution. But no, that is not. The synthesis would be where an end user would come in, and probably the downstream will work in this, is what is the return to my investment, which will be the synthesis of it. Because only after that, I will make my move. I'll not make my move on the data and the analysis on demand and supply. But after that, another plugin or another downstream that can help me out is basically finding the funding strategies. Now, if I can sort of rope in my upstream and downstream together from data to design for change, I think that path of mine becomes simpler. And I think the 2% that we are talking about, the downstream, is only because of the reason that we are not doing the synthesis and design for change in any of these schemes that we are doing. So I was wondering why this is happening, but I think
let's take a challenge on. Let's take a challenge on right after our discussion. I mean that we are going towards this direction if you call us, because It sounds fascinating, and it definitely can enrich our capabilities and enrich our market share.
So similarly to economic, I have done a little bit of work on urban data. I have done work on social data. I have done work on ecological data, which probably Mr. Murugan would be very interested in. So in all these, the four-step strategy, which includes your upstream and downstream, is probably in a matrix that can be discussed. So I'm glad, Georgie, that you allowed me to answer this. And I hope as far as ChatGPT is concerned,
we are looking for this answer. Maybe you answered in replacement of ChatGPT for all of us, because we are concerned a lot about this market. Yeah, you know, we earn money here.
So since I took time for this question, I would allow the others to fill in for the question, and I will enjoy it sitting back.
Thanks. Let's continue with Dr. Aniruddha.
Yeah, so ChatGPT is something which is revolutionary, and I often consult at least 10 of them. ChatGPT, I use Bard, I use Copy AI, and I try to experiment to see how the responses differ from one to another. But having said that, these hypothetical questions, that whatever, my primary concern would be like, so many satellites are now orbiting at LEO and MEO, at the lower orbits and the mid orbits of the GEO. What may be the effect of the space debris which is actually going to come? I would like to ask that. I would definitely like to ask from the space, if somebody is monitoring what is the global sea rise level which is increasing, which is a threat to the humans in the Earth. I would actually like to see that now it has got the capability. I think last week it got released that it can now relate to the images also. So what kind of image processing can it do for us in order to substantiate and automate the job? And these are all predictive theories. So sky is the limit, and the real threat, which we feel the very existence of the people who are in the Earth, and that is the primary concern I would primarily be asking. Very futuristic question and hypothetical answers, but this is what I feel these are natural concerns for all of us together across boundaries.
Most important, indeed. Yeah, let's continue. Nina, would you like to share on this? What would you ask?
Yeah, okay. So if imagine, yeah, so if imagine that ChatGPT is looking for us from above and so on, and he is very familiar with space technologies and so on. So my question will be:
He's not actually. This is just an imagination.
Imagination, yeah. So so that's a second. If you will imagine that, yeah. So I will ask, for example, which products he thinks will help us to achieve the real net zero and to achieve the sustainable development goals. Because right now, most part of the products which we have got in the terms of the Earth observation and geospatial technologies, they actually most help us to understand that the problem exists, why it occurs, and how it is affected. But actually, these products sometimes don't help us really to start acting. They help us just to understand, yes, that everything is bad, the environment is bad, and so on. So which products we could invent to really help us to achieve the sustainable development goals and net zero strategy? The second question will be some kind of related to the first one, because, right now you can see, like, in the social media, in the internet and so on, a lot of the situations when you use Earth observation and geospatial technologies to detect the consequences of some environmental issues, flooding, earthquakes, fires, and so on and so on. So something happened, and after that, a lot of people who use an geospatial data, they start to respond that, oh, look, people, we make the borders of the flooding, we make the borders of the fire, and so on. So what data sets and what data we actually need to shift our vision from the detection of the consequences to the prediction that the situation will occur in the future, and how to achieve the real forecasting. That means that not only to understand where the situation could happen in the future, where environmental risk could happen in the future, but actually what exact time or approximate time this situation could occur. So I think that is very important. And another one question which I will ask the chat is, which data sets we need and who, and based on which data should create these data sets to help us to solve the complex problems based on the Earth observation data, because right now most of the data sets which we have and which we use to train the artificial intelligence models and so on, ML models, mostly of these data sets, they're very simple, like the cars, trees, footprints, yes, and buildings, water masks, and so on. Very simple data sets in its core. So which complex data set we need? Because when it turns out not to just to the object detection, but to the complex mapping and the landscape mapping and the solving of the complex problem, we face the situation we actually haven't got any data sets, and which data sets and how we could produce. Who need to do that?
Good point.
Yeah.
We need to do this because actually before we will be able to ask ChatGPT anything of these big questions, we need to produce, we need to feed it with these large language models with data sets. Yeah, you know, with the global data sets, because it's trained based on some data sets. And when it comes to the text, when it comes to internet, you have a lot of information there. But there is missing a lot of information which we can extract from satellite observation data. It's really big volume of data, but someone needs to invest into this, like you invest into the internet and
yeah. And who is this person?
Who will be? Yeah, raise your hand, please. Okay, let's go next to Murugan. What would you think about this?
Yeah, I'll ask very simple question to ChatGPT, maybe like prompting in that case. How will I get insights instead of data from satellite? So this is my question to ChatGPT. I don't know how it will answer, but that's my question. And definitely, I don't want to process the data if I'm getting directly insights.
Can you repeat the last bit? What kind of data?
No, currently I'm using this satellite data to do multiple analysis for my sector. I don't want to do that. If I'm getting directly insights from ChatGPT or somewhere, that would be helpful.
So you would like to tune this ChatGPT based on your own data that you are using now?
Correct.
Good point. Dr. Usman, just not missing you, as I did by my mistake with Shalin, and to get your valuable insights of what kind of questions to ChatGPT could be.
Well, I mean, I have been using ChatGPT, and but I actually quite like Bard more. I mean, the Google have been doing a fantastic job, and I see that I mean, it's a great example of an open AI. But I do see there are a lot of limitations also still with ChatGPT in terms of like grasping the contents, and like for few questions it needs like it need more fine tuning, and also I realize that it has a lack of emotional intelligence, and like it have also trouble in generating long form and structured context. So I think with the passage of time, it might get better, but I do see there are still, like limitations with the ChatGPT as compared to the Google AI apps available in the market.
Fantastic, Dr. Osman. Really appreciate all the insights from our panels today. Nina, Dr. Anirudh, Murugan, Shaleen. I think we have been able to get a lot of interesting insights for our audience, for the community in general. And I know that we could have probably go on with this for hours and hours, but we'll have to move on to the next segment of the event, which is roast session, where we turn the table and we have Georgie on the hot seat to answer all the difficult questions, to get all the direct, brutal feedback from our panelists. So, Georgie, are you ready to share a brief presentation on GeoAlert and take questions?
Yeah, let's go to the presentation. Yes, sure. Actually, before we started, we were thinking that it will last no more than an hour, but the discussion was very interesting. So, would you allow me to share the screen, Pankaj?
Sure, please. Yeah. Just a moment.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, good. So I hope you see my screen.
Yeah.
So again, we are GeoAlert. The main product we develop is the platform for, we call it AI mapping or AI assisted mapping. So the mapping is when you digitize images and you extract some information or you produce digital maps. And what we are about to do, are we going to complete digitizing the whole world? Actually, when we started, and then when we were inspired by the power of AI technologies, and we developed our first deep learning models, we were thinking that we are capable of doing such things, producing database of the whole world. But that's what not is going now, and we discussed it with our dear panelists. The companies like Google and Facebook, they have much more publicity, much more capacity to publish open data, and this is not where business is. And what our product is about, how we are going to automate this data and implement it into the mapping workflows by the end users. As it was mentioned, how we're going to solve the end user's problem, and also how we're going to update this information. Yes, because the world actually is not static, it's changing all around us, and we need to be on time to get this information updated. And this is how we design our platform, how our platform is designed by our benchmarks, and we got a lot of proof of concept by our users. It allows to reach 10 times and more faster workflows when it's implemented into the AI assistant mapping, into the AI mapping. And it also helps to reduce costs for commercial imagery because everything is connected. Everything is in the cloud, and we are connected to the global data providers. You know, as it was in the good old days of DVD players, for example, you were used to distribution of the movies in DVD discs, but then Netflix came in and everything has changed, and now you are used to streaming movies online. And this is what is going in the market of commercial imagery. They are also moving to the cloud. And this is why we develop our platform towards connecting to these global data providers. And it takes time. It's not the easy cake, but we are going this direction. Mapflow is used globally. Here you see some heat map of Mapflow users for 3 months in 2023. And you see, some bias into India and to Asian markets. So we are trying to get more focused on the markets where we have the highest traction among our users. We have 2 large, actually dozens of small customers, and we are working with partners to integrate our solution to power their own applications with our technology. This is to be more specific about technology and the cases, the applications that we have as a successful use cases powered by our technology. We generate 3D objects which are extremely important for tasks for applications like radio planning, urban design, urban planning, but we generate these 3D objects using only 2D imagery. So flat imagery, so to say, no stereo imagery, which is much more expensive and sometimes hardly available. But we managed to generate with the good enough accuracy, which is good enough for telecom companies, and they use this technology. So about optimizing costs for commercial imagery, I already mentioned it. We detect construction sites, for example, and we update maps only within these construction sites where the construction changes are going rapidly. Another case is related to extraction of vegetation areas and vegetation heights within power line corridors when it comes to utilities management and tasks like this. So for power line operators, for utility management companies, now recently we've exceeded the number of 1,000 active users monthly of our platform. So it might be the good point to collaborate with data providers, because they are, they are stuck with the development of applications for the broader audience, for the wide range of users, and we can help them to promote their data to the larger audience. So that's why we are working on our model. This is how we position ourselves, because the market is quite competitive. Of course, we have vendors like Esri. First of all, we develop platform, and we are trying to follow, to be stick to this SaaS model, software as a service. And given that what was discussed, that the market share is quite low in terms of adoption of the technology, but the demand can be much higher. And development of SaaS, of the platform, looks like a reliable and long-term strategy here in this market. We are a small team. We've been doing with my colleagues, with my co-founders for several years, started from our collaborative laboratory work in Institute of Science and Technology in Skolkovo. And now we have a small team of developers, and that's why we are looking for investments to get more focused on the markets where we have good traction. You can actually, here's the video which is playing, showing that how you can start with our platform. Everyone can play around with our platform. It provides free access. This is the kind of software as a service model, as I mentioned before. So this is how it works. And you're welcome to ask your questions. You're welcome to test our technology, and we will be happy to collaborate with you.
Thank you, Georgi. Let's take questions.
Can we ask?
Yeah, please go ahead, Nina.
Okay, so my first question will be, so in terms of market, how do you think, what is your main value which allows you to compete, for example, with such an open data sets as open building data set from Google, for example?
Yeah, the main value that we don't we don't provide data sets, ready-to-use data sets. We merge, for example, the data with OpenStreetMap, freely available data, or with Google footprints whatsoever, but we produce data updates, mapping updates. This is the main point. We provide recent satellite images, for example, and we extract information which is needed to be updated. And also it's important for users to upload their own imagery. For example, when user uploads his own imagery, he can't rely on the openly available data because it won't align with his particular image. He needs to digitize it from scratch. And that's how he can use our technology.
Thank you. Can we ask more questions?
Yeah, definitely. Please go ahead.
Yeah. How do you evaluate your own data set? So is it appropriate, for example, to make a digital navigation or to be used for the mobile data providers to understand like the mobile coverage? Or so mobile coverage, for example, I think it is good enough for mobile coverage, but for example, is it good enough to make a digital navigation in the cities? And how do you evaluate your own data set in terms of how the accuracy differs like from region to region? Are there any issues in terms of like building mapping in the dense urban areas? For example, building mapping in the areas with rural buildings or in really intensively built up cities and so on?
Yeah, actually, intensively built up cities and high density areas are the most challenging for mapping tasks. But for updating the maps but getting straight to the point, our technology is not accurate enough, I would rather say, to producing HD maps, for example, which are required for the navigation, for example. But we've been requested a lot, and it might be achievable with some, investments, also to say. And we need more accurate data. We need more detailed data to produce maps like this. But I think everything is achievable in the future.
I think there is a question from Dr. Anirudh.
Yeah. Thank you, Pankaj. So I have got one observation, and then I'll ask. Your product I have tested; it is really very good, and it solves a lot of problems for those to whom it matters. So I'll give you a scenario. Every data set which is coming from varied satellite data has got some level of resolution. So you have got very resolution which is more than 5 meters. You have got resolution 1 meter. You have got better than 30 centimeters, and something which is around 30 to 50 centimeter resolution satellite data. My first question to you: which are the specific resolution that you are comfortable building your data sets, the 3D models, and what resolution do you feel is apt, wherein you have tuned your data set with your algorithms? So which resolution, in short, are you comfortable, where you say that you have got maximum confidence in building the accuracy, and to which segment of the users?
Oh, good, very good point. Thank you, Dr. Aniruda. And we are still thinking about targeting which clients we are going to target with our product most. Yeah, and we got a successful story with one of the leading Russian telecom companies, MTS, actually been able to implement this technology to their mapping workflows. And they were quite satisfied with the accuracy of our technology. And we used 50 centimeter data to generate 3D buildings. And also we are going to generate vegetation with heights, as it's also required for radio planning. It's also the obstacles for radio planners. And what is going to be next? I would rather say that it's always the trade-off between the product cost and the number of applications you can apply your technology to. So now we are trying to reduce our product costs in the same time to produce more accurate data. And this is the challenging way, the long journey we are following.
So my next question, and which is a following question, when you create 3D as per Open Geospatial Consortium, there is a level of maturity for the data sets which is there in 3D. As of now, the maturity model in which we are talking about what we call level of details. So what is the level of details that you are addressing the market as per OGC standards?
in terms of standards, I would say that this is level of detailization detail one, because it means it's supposed to be building footprint plus building height. And what we can predict building height, and this is the point of this technology. If we are talking about the platform is not designed for one model only. It can operate more models, and we are developing more models. But if we talk about building footprints, our main difference and our know-how, so to say, is to generate 3D from 2D imagery, not stereo imagery, not LiDAR data. So this is the point. And you can consider it like a scalable solution. You can produce this data on a very large scale, like countrywide scale, so on. And when it comes to the wide broadband, wide networks of mobile companies, it might make sense.
So one aspect is very clearly evident, that your solution on 3D is clearly targeting the line of sight analysis for 4G networks and things like that, which can be very quickly replicated around various cities of any country. That part is understood loud and clear. As far as the urban flooding is concerned, so when we talk about 3D, we do have the digital terrain model, which is actually talking about the elevation model of the terrain, bearer, and also one which is the surface model. Do you have any plans to create the accurate, and accuracy is very relative. That means worldwide people are using, why I'm asking, let me be very specific to the theory. The whole world, we are finding there extreme climatic conditions. 90% of the disasters that we are facing is hydrometeorologically in nature. Either there are heat waves or there are flooding happening in the various parts of the country, as far as our geography is concerned. One of the key requirements in the urban areas is the very accurate. So most of the researchers, they use either the data sets which is coming from SRTM, or they are using 1 meter coarse DEM data where the vertical accuracy is around 3 meters. My question to you,
3 meters.
Do you have any plans to create a finer digital elevation model, basically the terrain model, in currently, or you do have some plans in near future?
I think, thank you, first of all, for this question and for the suggestion, or if I might consider it as a suggestion. But I think that companies like data providers have much more competitive advantage to produce high-resolution digital elevation models. So they own this data. For example, Maxar, Geospatial, whoever it might be, they own this data, and they can produce these digital elevation models, and then we can purchase this data and enrich it with extraction of more information for digital surface model, like buildings, the information that is changing actually, which is needed to be updated most. Elevation is not changing so rapidly. We need to collect this data, and data providers have these capabilities, and then they can provide this data, and we can collaborate with them on updating, on developing of more applications for telco, for urban planners, and other kind of applications. This is how
my last query. Thank you. My last query. For the 3D data sets, what is the vertical accuracy that you get from the 50 centimeter spatial resolution?
So by our benchmarks for buildings, we have from 3 to 5 meters height accuracy, depending on the urban patterns. When easy to map urban patterns, then we can get to the high accuracy, you know. When at density building areas, it's more challenging. But as I see, we can also combine different kind of technologies. I can share with you more details what we are doing now. We are about to release our new model of building height detections, and it's going to be more accurate compared to what we had before.
Thank you, Georgie. Thank you for all your responses. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Anirudh.
Hello.
We have a question from Pierre.
Yeah, hello, everyone.
Please go ahead.
From Indonesia. I want to ask you a simple question. But first, I'm happy to speak to you. I want to know what is your advantage or disadvantage, your solution compared to EthAum.
Okay, thank you. If I got your question right, so what are the main advantages and disadvantages I would name related to our product? So one of the limitations that I would start with is that we are not data providers. Yeah, we are not launching satellites, for example. I know companies who acquired who raised funds to launch satellites. Then they did some pivot, and now they are developing software. So they already have money, and now they're developing software to provide some analytics, for example, based on the imagery. We are not launching satellites. We need to negotiate. We need to struggle with negotiations with data providers, and we are depending on them in terms of data. Because you know, this market is actually is starting from data providers, from sensors, but also there is a large audience of the users who have their own images, and they need software to process their images. And here we have some advantages. We can aggregate data from data providers. We can also provide these users with capabilities to digitize their own data. And so mixing up these different kind of data sources, we definitely have some advantages.
So, Georgie, I have one question specifically. This is related to the use case which you showed, vegetation and non-vegetation. Is there anything similar which you are tracking, like water quality parameter?
You know, regarding the water quality and the water borders, we can implement such a technology, such a model. We will definitely discuss with you following this meeting. And this is one of the models we were thinking about. Because recently, actually, we hosted in our platform, we hosted the model released by Meta AI. Maybe you have heard about it. It's called segmentation anything. It's a powerful model, but it can be tuned up to any object on the Earth, you know, but with much less accuracy than our object-wise models. Okay. Because yeah, it's kind of tricky things. You have to deal with many objects, not with the face in one picture, you know. When your face occupies a large area in one picture, you have to deal with a lot of scattered objects in the image. You need to extract, you need to segmentize, you need to extract from the picture. And this is kind of domain we are working in. And so we are developing this kind of tools within our platform that helps us to tune models to the specific request demanded or the specific request provided by the user. And doing these things, we will be capable to answer any request, like, for example, extract all the rivers that are presented in this image, extract all the forest boundaries, extract all the vehicles, I don't know, all the other kind of things. This is what we are going towards, but it's also the long journey, and we need to expedite this kind of things. We are doing it right now.
Okay, thank you.
I hope I have answered your question. Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
If it was possible, I would like to ask another one question, like a positive one. How do you imagine your ideal client? So, you know, if like, imagine your ideal client, so who it will be, whom you want to reach out and to deliver your services to?
Actually, we have such ideal clients. We treat all our clients, we are trying to treat all our clients like ideal ones. You know, it's the best way you can develop startup business, because otherwise it would be very painful. And but for example, we have clients who do mapping on a large scale. So we prefer when our platform is applied to some scalable tasks. For example, like I mentioned about wide coverage of mobile networks, or country-wide projects to extract building footprints in using the large data sets of images. And also we are eager to work with customers to collaborate on some projects like extraction of available insights from time series of images. Because it's also the very interesting domain for us, and we started doing some research about change detections. And when you need to compare one image to another, we need to get some scientific approach, as you mentioned in your introductory speech. And we need to combine this approach with the scalable tools, with the software application, to get it on a large scale. This is how we see our advantage, and this is how we see the application for our platform.
Georgia, I do have one last question from my side. Do you have the change detection in 3D? Do you have any plans to make it happen?
Yeah, we do have any plans, because we see it as a growing demand, and we see that it would be the very interesting space for research and development for our team, but it goes not so far as we would expect it to go, because of the limitations of the resources, and we have a small team. But yeah, we are doing some research on this. I will.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. This has been an extremely engaging conversation. I must say that our panelists were not really hard in the roast session. They were extremely gracious, extremely kind. They did not really give a very difficult feedback or brutal feedback to Georgi and Andre. But again, really appreciate all the panelists' presence today. The insights were fantastic. I'm sure that the community is going to love this session today. Obviously, we are going to share link of this panel with all of you so that you can review it again, or probably share it with your network when possible. But I think this is not the only conversation in which we are engaging. I think we need to re-engage, reconnect in the next couple of weeks to see how we can collaborate, how we can support each other or each other's initiatives and help each other growing. So again, thanks to all the panelists. Really appreciate your time, and let's reconnect soon. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you, Pankaj.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Georgie.
Bye. Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.